Welcome to the Genuine Driven Women podcast, the show where we guide women to reveal their strengths so they believe and can achieve their desired greatness. This is episode 8, and I am Tammy, along with my co-host Adelaida.
Hi, everyone.
On today's show, we are going to talk about embracing workplace conflict.
Even if you love your job and the people you work with, there will be conflict from time to time. Conflict is not a bad thing if it is over something work-related and not directed as a personal attack.
A vigorous debate over the best path forward can lead to excellent discussion, many perspectives, and ultimately will lead to innovation.
Don't be afraid to enter into the throes of these types of discussions. As long as everyone is ultimately respectful of the people involved and passion for the issue comes from a good place, it will leave the problem at hand in a better place in the end.
I would even go as far to say a team or organization with no ability to freely and passionately debate issues concerning a project at hand is probably an unhealthy organization at its very core.
Why do we say this? Do you work at a place where you see something should be improved, yet no one would dare mention it? When you are in a meeting and the leader makes a decision, does everyone remain silent, even if their body language makes it obvious they disagree?
Have you been in a meeting where no one said anything at all? Then directly following the meeting, everybody leaves, they separate into small groups around the office, and they whisper quietly, and they complain secretly about what just happened?
If this only happens occasionally, maybe not a big deal. But if this is the daily norm, this is probably an unhealthy organization. Learn to embrace healthy workplace conflict and to use it strategically.
Learning to disagree and then constructively working through it is very important if you care truly about reaching the best solution to the goals of the team.
However, if a conflict over a work-related task is not managed well, it could grow into a personal conflict that poisons the whole team.
When people are unhappy at work like this, tension and stress will rise, people will call in sick more often, and if it's bad enough, they will just find somewhere else to work.
Yeah, I've had this in a workplace before where there was not the exact boss, but the boss right underneath.
Yeah.
We would have meetings and none of us liked this person. And just like we talked about, as soon as we would break, we would all go into like a little group, like me and the people that were under them, and just talk about how much the reasons why we didn't like her and everything that she was saying that we felt was wrong. And we try to bring it up to our boss's boss, but he never wanted to talk about it.
Why do you think so? He was avoiding it?
He was avoiding it, yes. Yeah.
Why do you think that he didn't take steps to improve the situation?
I feel like maybe he thought that it was unnecessary, that we should all just try to cooperate, and people have different personalities. And I think that was one of our main things, was we didn't like her personality, and that made us not like her and try to find things in her work that we didn't like. And that's wrong on us, because we should take out the personality. Like, we should try to, right? Like, we should be trying
as
to,
much as you can, yes.
Yeah, try to just deal with the facts and taking care of what we need to take care of.
Yes.
And I think that's where we went wrong.
But you guys were very young. This
was back whenever I was 18.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's something people have to learn. And I think that sometimes when you're young, that you haven't yet considered that conflict is okay. And I think that's, some more what we're going to get into today. But yeah, that's a very good example.
Yeah, and I think that also because of our age, like you're saying, that's probably another reason why he didn't really take into consideration our thoughts, is maybe he was thinking, I'm older than you guys, because he was in his mid-30s at this time. So I think that he thought that, oh, you guys are probably just being kids.
Also, he has just a different experience, and so he could see the difference between young high school kids that are unhappy and the situation as a whole, that you guys might not have understood the entire picture. I mean, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but that he might have seen something else from his perspective that you guys weren't seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the opposite of this type of workplace is one where people feel free to share their thoughts. They feel that they can provide various opinions, even if they disagree with the leader or the rest of the team.
And when they offer their thoughts, they feel the leader and the team is listening to them. I mean, actually listening. This type of workplace is a place where people want to come to work. They are loyal to their organization, and long-lasting work relationships are grown.
This type of workplace will generate better products and will have a great cost savings just from the retained knowledge alone. This is the type of place where we all want to work.
Yeah, so imagine a place where you can walk into a meeting, everybody's like, oh, hey, Bob, hey, Joanne, you know?
Yeah.
And then they sit down, somebody brings up an important issue they're having with the project, and then people start going, okay, I have great concerns about the semiconductor we're going to use. And the other person says, oh, Joanne, I told you about that semiconductor. And they, I don't know,
Yeah.
making stuff. Are there even still semiconductors today? I'm probably talking in 1980s language.
I think there are.
So anyway, the team itself can just kind of really debate these issues. And it might even seem, if somebody just looked in from the outside, wow, they are pretty intense.
Yeah.
But then all the debate occurs, a decision's made by the leader of the team, and then based on the debate, and then everybody's like, oh, okay, well, oh, nice talk, Joanne. It was nice seeing you today. You too, Bob. And they walk out of the meeting happy. Can you imagine that?
It's a dream.
I mean, it sounds really great. And
Yeah.
that would be an example of a good team, actually, where you can really kind of go at it in a constructive manner about the topic at hand and then walk out friends, And that's how it should be. And those kind of workplaces do exist, and that's what we need to find. Many people think that conflict is fighting. And I know if you talk to family members and other people, other friends in your life, you've met them, that the only way they deal with conflict is they go straight to yelling or screaming.
Yes, I definitely know people like that.
Yeah, and fighting is only one of the ways that people deal with conflict. There are actually many other ways that people deal with conflict.
In his white paper, Making Conflict Management a Strategic Advantage, Dr. Kenneth Thomas says a more useful definition of conflict is the condition in which people's concerns appear to be incompatible. He says a concern is anything people care about.
And Dr. Thomas identified 5 different conflict handling modes in his white paper. He says when people find themselves in conflict, their behavior can be described in terms of where it lies along 2 independent dimensions.
Picture a diagram of a y-axis and an x-axis as you listen. Assertiveness is represented along a vertical or y-axis, and cooperativeness is represented across the horizontal or x-axis.
Assertiveness can be described as the degree to which you try to satisfy your own concerns, and cooperativeness is the degree to which you try to satisfy other people's concerns.
The first of the 5 modes is competing, which is assertive and uncooperative. When you compete, you try to satisfy your own concerns at the other people's expense to win.
Competing. Let's think of some examples have you seen any examples of somebody who is competing? It could be the workplace, school. I mean, it could be on a basketball court. Competing. That's when they only care about themselves and they are not taking anybody else's concerns to heart.
Yeah, I had one whenever I was a server whenever I was working at the restaurant. This one, we as a team, we're all serving other different, sections of tables, but you try to help out as much as you can. Like if you see another server's, really struggling, you maybe grab some plates for them and bring them out. And this one girl was just about basically competing, where she didn't want to help you. She didn't want to talk to you. Like she didn't want to talk about anything. Like there's a conflict. She just didn't deal with it. And I felt like that wasn't the best way. So she ended up making more of no one talked to her, and they avoided her, which is another one we're going to talk about, because she wanted to compete with everyone. Like she didn't feel like their needs were important.
And so do you think she was doing it specifically in order to make herself the best server at the restaurant or something like that? Was she trying to get all the tips for herself so she didn't want to share, or was it something like that?
Yeah, I do think that, where she just felt like if she didn't ask us for help, then she didn't need to help us. And so that's how I think she was looking at it, as in, I just want to do my own thing, get my own tips. I don't want to help you guys because that's not, that's not for me. It's helping you.
Yes. Yep.
And so, I mean,
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because she Yeah, she didn't want to have any contribution to you guys getting tips.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just all about her. And I do understand that, but I don't know if that was the best way to handle it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's one of those, you get what you give sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And also competing in general, there are times that competing might be the right thing. If you're really trying to get something done and you think you can do it quickly and it's not really going to hurt anybody too bad, but, you know, you can take a giant step forward doing something. There's times that competing can be the right thing. A lot of times in a team setting, competing can come off in a way that, you know, isn't desirable for the team as a whole. So there's pros and cons to all of these. The second mode is accommodating. Accommodating is unassertive and cooperative. So it's accommodating is basically the opposite of competing. So you sacrifice your own concerns to satisfy other people's concerns. And you can think of accommodating like somebody who's too nice or seems so nice that they're basically not even taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And this does happen in the workplaces. There's always that one person. There was this one girl that used to work in our office, and she was so nice. And she would frequently be at work until 7 or 8 p.m. at night because she spent the entire day trying to make sure everybody at the office was okay and making sure if anybody needed help, she was helping them, basically taking care of them, so that if she had any separate work to be done, she had to do it all after all the people left, because that was the only time she didn't have anybody else to take care of except for herself. And that was the reason she was there. And I loved her to death, but she was so nice. But I would call her accommodating in many cases.
Yeah, definitely. The third mode is compromising, which is partially assertive and partially cooperative. This is when you look for an acceptable solution that only partially satisfies both your own and the other person's concerns.
Yeah, so when you're compromising, it's like everybody has to give up something, but everybody gets something. So that's,
it works out pretty nice.
It's a usually okay situation. And there's a lot of times where compromising is definitely the right thing. Maybe even in relationships or even with a mother-daughter relationship. Sometimes I compromise so that you're happy, and sometimes I'm sure you've compromised to make me happy.
Yeah, I think we've both done that before.
Or even in love relationships. But it also definitely happens at work when somebody definitely wants something one way. You have a challenge in your team and somebody else wants something, and then instead of coming up with a solution that works for everybody, because that sometimes takes a long time, we just come up with a solution that partly meets everybody's needs, and we're like, okay, that works for now, and we all just move on.
Yeah. Another like silly example, my friends and I are planning to do something over spring break, and we were talking about all these like different things. So we could go camping, we could go on the beach, like, and we were just all throwing things.
Wait, what about go camping on the beach?
And yeah, that's exactly what one of my friends said. She's like, how about we stay in a hotel, you know, in this, you know, on the beach, and then we go camping one of the days. So it's like, you know,
it's like a little bit of everything.
It's a little bit of everything.
But then it's like kind of crazy. But
you're doing everything. Exactly. So everyone kind of gets a little bit of something, but the compromise is that we're all kind of like doing everything like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, just a little bit of everything.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, we thought that was a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. The fourth mode is avoiding, which is both unassertive and uncooperative. You try to sidestep or postpone the conflict, and you satisfy neither person's concerns. So basically, this is if you think you have a concern and you think the other person has a concern, and then you just basically go around the situation and just completely try to not even talk about it or not even deal with it. And especially if both people are doing this, nothing happens. No concerns are addressed, but you didn't actually have to have a conversation about the conflict.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes you say more passive-aggressive things because you don't want to talk about it. So instead you're just like, oh yeah, everything's good here, but everything's not really good.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, and there are actually good times to avoid the conflict. If the conflict that you're both having is something more personal in nature or personality related, is it really necessary to talk about it because there's maybe nothing you can do about that?
Yeah.
So it's probably best to just know when you have like a personality conflict with somebody, because that can be hard to deal with. So it's best to, sometimes when you have a personality conflict with somebody, it's best to just avoid the conversation as much as possible and maybe just deal with that person only in a professional sense and as little as you have to.
Yes, I agree. But I do think that I've had a situation before where the person actually avoided me. They didn't want to talk about it eventually. They just stopped. They didn't want to be my friend anymore, even though it was
Oh.
something so small.
Yes.
That so instead of, trying to talk about it, and this person I think was also a little bit of an introvert, maybe they didn't, want to, discuss, kind of a little more straightforward of a person. I want to talk about things and just hash it out. And
Yes.
so, but I think they decided to avoid the situation entirely, and me.
They're like,
because,
okay, I can't even be your friend anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to avoid even this friendship.
Exactly.
Aw.
Even though it might have worked out if we would have just talked about everything, would have been
Yeah.
fine. But instead, they
Yes.
didn't want to. So it also works in
Yeah.
that friendship
Because
category.
that
too.
was their personality. That it was like too much. It was probably overwhelming for them to deal with something that was going to be negative or complicated or
Yeah.
hard or, and that's the way things are sometimes.
Yeah. Although it maybe would have been better for them.
Because if they would have just talked, everything could have actually gotten worked out.
Yeah, and we all would have been friends still. But,
yeah, and you
yeah.
never know how life works out. Sometimes these things have a way of coming around.
The last of the 5 modes is collaborating, which is assertive and cooperative. You try to problem solve to find a solution that completely satisfies both your concerns and the others.
Yeah, collaborating is probably, the best of all worlds. However, it can be very time consuming, but collaborating is very good, but it takes sometimes a lot of good debate to get to the collaboration. If you can find a team, it's kind of like the beginning when I explained a team that can go in and debate, and then they can come to some resolution, and the leader can make a decision, and everybody's like, yeah, that's great. But it does take time to work through this one.
The example I gave prior to maybe would have worked better for this situation, the spring break.
Yeah, because it seems like the spring break one definitely seems like you guys are almost
like we're trying to put everything in.
Yeah.
And then, but it's
you're
like
trying to take everybody's concerns and you're dealing with, you're dealing with everybody's concerns except for maybe only partially. So that would make it collaborating. But if you could actually find something like maybe somebody wanted to go camping, somebody wanted to go to the beach, somebody wanted to go to Mexico, but then instead you guys decided to go to Palm Springs and everybody was happy.
Yeah. And have margaritas or something while you're in Palm Springs.
Yeah. So I don't know because there could have been like an option that nobody said that if that option had, if you guys talk long enough, you would have come up to some other option that everybody would have been just super satisfied with.
Yeah.
So, but it would have taken longer because there would have been more research required and more creativity involved, so it would have taken longer. But yeah, it really could have happened. When you consider this ingeniously simple model, I want you to notice something that not everybody considers, that collaborating is actually possible in conflict. So you don't have to compete to get your needs met. And as we discussed earlier, some people really believe that the only true conflicts are fights. But a conflict can be, as we discussed earlier, a conflict is basically any time that your concerns and somebody else's concerns are not aligned.
And also, you can cooperate without being thought of as too soft.
Yes, definitely true. So the collaborative process can become very passionate at times, with people expressing their views strongly to make sure they are heard and taken seriously.
But what makes collaboration different from other conflict handling modes is that people are listening to other people's views, not just focusing on their own opinions, and they try to incorporate their ideas into sound decisions.
And team members can benefit from learning that teammates with each of the 5 different conflict styles all have positive values and are trying to make a positive contribution to the team overall.
Competitors are trying to champion courses of action. Competitors are trying to champion courses of action that they believe to be sound and to move things along.
Yeah, and accommodators are trying to maintain and build team goodwill and team cohesiveness.
You can see that if you think about it, there are good points about each style. Each can be especially good at dealing with certain kinds of situations.
Understanding the positive intentions of each style reduces resentment over style differences, and it will make it easier for teams to listen to each other. They can then learn from one another's insights.
Don't be afraid of conflict, but try to be aware of your style and those around you.
After all, constructive conflict is a very important part of strong teams. If you can learn to use the appropriate style at the right time and understand the styles or what might be driving them in others, your team can become a high-performing team and a highly productive team. Successful women back in time.
In this segment each week, we will give a few points about women that have accomplished a lot. We also will discuss a bit about what was happening to women during the time periods. Someone we think you would like to know more about is Margaret Thatcher. She was the first woman to be elected as the Prime Minister for the British in the year 1979, which also makes her Europe's first ever Prime Minister. Margaret was born in 1925 and very quickly grew to love politics. She attended the University of Oxford, where she studied chemistry. She became one of the first women presidents of the Oxford University Conservative Association. Once she had graduated, she began working as a research chemist and studying for the bar when she had time. In 1951, she married a man named Dennis Thatcher, who supported her political dreams. This is awesome because during the 1950s, a lot of people were still following the traditional gender roles, and dissatisfaction with these roles had just began to emerge. Margaret ran for Parliament in 1950, but lost. But soon after, in 1959, she won a Conservative seat in the House of Commons. After this, she began to move up in the world of politics, where she eventually won the spot as Prime Minister. She was able to hold this office for 3 consecutive terms before she resigned. She was the only Prime Minister to serve 3 consecutive times in the 20th century, which is pretty cool. Margaret is a role model to all women. She was able to become the Prime Minister by working hard and never letting go of her dreams, and that is exactly what we all should do.
Yeah, Margaret Thatcher, she's pretty amazing, and just listening to how she came up to be the Prime Minister between, the time she was born and when she actually started her political dreams and running for Parliament in 1950, that was before my mom was even born.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive.
It is. Yeah. And in 1959 she won. I was blown away. I was like, that's pretty awesome.
Because even right now, if you search the entire world, the number of female leaders of countries, there's more now than ever probably, but I wonder in this time how many there were. So yeah, very impressive. Yeah, that was a good one. The motivational quote of the week.
If you don't like the road you're walking, start paving another one. Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton knows what to say. If something has gone awry, you do not have to continue down that path. You can choose to go a different way. Don't let yourself get in the way of that.
Oh yeah, Dolly Parton. I feel like if there's anybody in the world that knew what they wanted to do and walked down their own path, it is Dolly Parton.
Yes, that is so true.
Did you ever see the Christmas movie of her, the Dolly Parton Christmas movie that came out a couple years ago when she was a little girl?
Yes,
I did. Oh my gosh. And
it was so good.
And how hard of a life she had when she was young.
Yeah.
And just coming from such a family with lots of love, but still just so few means.
Yeah.
And she came to be who she is now. And that's because she started paving her own road.
Yes, she did. And look where she is now.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Impressive. I think if you're walking in your world every day and there's something that you think you should be doing and you are not satisfied where you are, you can make the decision to change.
Yes.
Genuine driven women read lots of books. We'll make sure to recommend a book each week that will inspire you or help you on your journey to success. This week's book is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. If you'd like to buy this book in any format, including audiobooks, click through to the show notes where you'll find a link. From the time we learn to speak, we're told that if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all. But when you become a manager, it is your job to say it, and it is your obligation. Author Kim Scott was an executive at Google and then at Apple, where she developed a class on how to be a good boss. She has earned growing fame in recent years with her vital new approach to effective management. Radical Candor. Radical Candor is a simple idea. To be a good boss, you have to care personally, while at the same time you challenge directly. When you challenge without caring, it is obnoxious aggression. When you care without challenging, it is ruinous empathy. When you do neither, it is manipulative insincerity. This simple framework can help you build better relationships at work and fulfill your 3 key responsibilities as a leader. Kim says, first, you should be creating a culture of feedback, praise, and criticism. Second, you should be building a cohesive team. And third, you should be achieving results that you can all be proud of. Radical Candor offers a guide to those bewildered and exhausted by management. It is written for bosses and for those who manage bosses. It is taken from years of her experience, and Kim Scott clearly lays out actionable lessons. She shows managers how to be successful while retaining their humanity, finding meaning in their job, and creating an environment where people both love their work and their colleagues. This is the perfect book for today's episode on conflict resolution and is highly recommended reading for a genuine driven woman. Again, click through to the show notes for a link to buy this book. We genuinely want to know what you're thinking. This is the section where you ask questions, let us know what's on your mind, or just say hello. Are you driven to succeed? Then email us at genuinedrivenwomen, that's women, WOMEN, at gmail.com, or call us at 724-DRIVEN, the number 2. In other words, that's 724-374-8362, and leave us a voicemail. We will use your voicemails on a future podcast. We look forward to hearing from you. The Genuine Driven Women podcast is produced every week for your inspiration, education, and enjoyment. The show notes and so much more can be found at genuinedrivenwomen.com. Please subscribe to this show via iTunes and Stitcher to receive ongoing weekly motivation to turn your dreams into goals and to reach your version of success. We'd love for you to take a couple minutes to write a review on iTunes, which will help us to reach our goal to connect with girls, young ladies, and women who need just this kind of inspiration every week. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/genuinedrivenwomen. There you can join the conversation, get to know us better, and find out about all the new things that we will be announcing in the months to come. Okay, ladies, it's time to get out there and be the best you that you can be. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.